Welcome to the Tech Mobility Podcast, brought to you by Playbook Investors Network, your strategic partner for unstoppable growth. Visit pincommunity.org to get started.
I'm Ken Chester. On the docket, my review and impressions of the 2026 Lincoln Aviator SUV, trading stocks as a miner, and why green steel suddenly matters. To add your voice to the conversation, be it to ask a question, share an opinion, or even to suggest topics for a future discussion, call or text the Tech Mobility Hotline. That number, 872-222-9793. Or if you prefer, you can always email the show directly, talk@techmobility.show. From the Tech Mobility News Desk, I got a question from a prior time, long ago. Would you really rather have a Buick? It seems that GM, and this is from the GM Authority, GM is thinking about a Buick sedan. Building a Buick sedan, not for China, not this time, for the United States. If you remember Buick, if you're a certain age, you would remember the reputation of Buick. Big, powerful, smooth, plush, comfortable. Detractors would call them land yachts. Us of a certain age would call them comfortable. Matter of fact, at one time, Toyota's Avalon even got a nickname, the Japanese Buick, which I think was meant to be a compliment, I think. Buicks were, in their day, a notch below Oldsmobile and Cadillac. But if you had a Buick in your driveway, if you had a Buick sedan in your driveway, life was good. You were probably middle management. Life was going pretty good for you. Not too bad. You had a Buick. Buick hasn't offered a sedan in the United States market now for 7 years, since 2019. And the word is that they may be exploring the return of a Buick sedan to the North American market. A move that would mark a notable shift for the brand's domestic lineup, which currently consists entirely of crossovers from the Enclave on down. And the Enclave's proven to be a pretty good vehicle for them. GM, since last year, has been working on 2 sedans, at least 2, for the U.S. market, which is interesting to note, which begs the question, who are they for? Are we getting to a point where SUVs, crossovers, are going the same way as the minivan did for our kids, where they wouldn't be caught in a mom-mobile? Buick used to be known as an old folks car. And there's a reason. We like it comfortable, and they're powerful, and you didn't have to think about it. The car just ran, and it's awesome. And some of the best GM vehicles out there were Buicks. And if you've owned a Buick LeSabre, I see you nodding. You know I'm right. The Buick LeSabre was the ride back in the day. And if you go further back in the day, and I'm talking about back in the 70s, you probably remember the Buick Electra 225. That was the pinnacle for the Park Avenue. Big, heavy, V8, smooth. Oh, yeah. If you were aspiring, you owned a Buick Electra 225. It was some kind of car. Can GM, in today's world, capture the essence of what Buick was in its heyday? Will they maybe consider a new identification, a new, identity for not just the vehicle, but for the Buick brand? I mean, everybody made the rush over the last 25, 26 years. Every single automaker, every single one, large and small, has made the rush towards trucks, body-on-frame SUVs, car-based crossover SUVs. And right now, market's full of them. Name your brand. I'll name the SUV or crossover they sell. Plural. I mean, even boutique makes getting a brand. I mean, Porsche, Maserati, Bentley even, Rolls-Royce, even they got in on it. Could this be the start of a backlash that maybe GM is seeing or perceiving? That it may be time that the passenger car may not be completely done yet. Let's look at the advantages. Smooth ride, better fuel economy, comfortable. Yes, you give up the higher elevated overview, but you get a vehicle that is grounded, based, and honestly, with all the technology going forward, it has never been better. Toyota still builds the Camry. Honda still builds the Accord. Kia builds the K5 and the K4, and Hyundai still builds the Sonata. These are all passenger cars that are still available today in the market right now. Could we be seeing a backlash? Nissan kind of alluded to it by keeping their Altima because they felt that there was a market for the car. Because what they were hearing is a backlash from younger people who did not want to drive with mom and dad and, God forbid, grandma and grandpa driving. Last vehicles they want to own. And that's always been the way it was. It's just now it's crossovers and SUVs now. And to a lesser extent, believe it or not, full-size pickup trucks, particularly if you're out here in the Midwest, you're going to see an older person owning it because that ride is amazing. And that's where the full-size luxury car folks went. They went to full-size pickup trucks, body on frame. And honestly, if you sit in a mid-range to a high-end pickup truck, you might as well be sitting in a luxury car because it's got everything. And it's amazing. What they're thinking, according to the GM Authority, is that a Buick-branded sedan derived from the Alpha 2 architecture might happen. It's the same platform family that's expected to underpin the next generation Cadillac CT5. And that makes sense. Automakers do not try to build orphan cars. They want to build vehicles off of established platforms, different vehicles at different price points. That has been GM's whole history for over 120 years. It's what they've been doing, and it's what they do best. And every automaker does it. Because developing a platform which is basically the bones that the vehicle rides on, that controls all the attributes, how it rides, how tall you are, what engines are used, how it's propelled, what features they can add to it, is all determined by the architecture, the underlying platform that the vehicle is built on. Mandates all of that. And in a perfect world, an automaker wants to build as many different vehicles off the same platform as possible because these platforms cost $1 billion each or more to design and manufacture. So obviously they want high volume. So there is a platform available that would go well with a Buick. The question is, what does a Buick in 2026, 2027, 2028, what is a Buick sedan stand for? What is it? What is it? Don't know. Is it performance? Is it luxury? You don't want too much luxury because then you're bumping up against the Cadillac CT5. But you got to give it some reason to exist, some reason for people to buy it. And then finally, how are you going to price it? Where are you going to build it? All those things add into it. But the fun fact, they've been building and selling sedans under the Buick name in China for years. And some of those cars are amazing. Maybe it's time for us to get in on the party and appreciate some of this stuff. So again, I ask you, like they asked buyers in 1965, and it was a long-running campaign, wouldn't you really rather have a Buick? We're going to find out in due time, particularly if they're able to bring this sedan to market. I hope so. The second time is the charm. My impressions of the 2026 Lincoln Aviator SUV. You are listening to the Tech Mobility Show.
In business, opportunity doesn't wait, and neither should you. At Playbook Investors Network, we connect visionary entrepreneurs with the strategies, resources, and capital they need to win. Whether you're launching, scaling, or reimagining your business, our network turns ambition into measurable success. Your vision deserves more than a plan. It deserves a playbook that works. Playbook Investors Network, where bold ideas meet bold results. Visit pincommunity.org today.
Are you tired of juggling multiple apps and platforms for meetings, webinars, and staying connected? Look no further than AONmeetings.com, the all-in-one browser-based platform that does it all. With AON Meetings, you can effortlessly communicate with clients, host virtual meetings and webinars, and stay in touch with family and friends, all in one place and for one price. Here's the best part. You can enjoy a 30-day free trial. It's time to simplify your life and boost your productivity. AONmeetings.com, where innovation meets connection. Get started today and revolutionize the way you communicate.
To learn more about the Tech Mobility Show, start by visiting our website. I'm Ken Chester, host of the Tech Mobility Show. The website is a treasure trove of information about me and the show, as well as where to find it on the radio across the country. Keep up with the happenings at the Tech Mobility Show by visiting techmobility.show. You can also drop us a line at talk@techmobility.show.
Every great business starts with a spark, but taking it to the next level takes strategy, connections, and capital. That's where Playbook Investors Network comes in. We're your strategic partner for accelerating growth, navigating challenges, and capturing market opportunities before your competition does. Your business is more than an idea. Let's make it an impact. Playbook Investors Network. Your future starts here. Learn more at pincommunity.org.
Straightaways, for curves, for impulses. The Lincoln Aviator. Travel well.
Travel well. So did that entice you to just want to run out and buy a 2004 Lincoln Aviator? Yeah, I thought so. And I'll explain in a minute. When it comes to the Lincoln Aviator SUV, it seems like the second time, in fact, may be the charm. You see, the folks at Lincoln decided back in the early 2000s that the flagship Navigator SUV needed a smaller companion. I mean, the logic was sound. The Navigator was becoming a breakout star for the division, and they figured that they could catch lightning in a bottle again, so to speak. The first Aviator was launched for the 2003 model year, and based on the Ford Explorer, it also shared its underpinnings with the Mercury Mountaineer. Bet you didn't remember that one, did you? And although it took its styling cues from the larger Navigator, it featured a more powerful and refined V8 than was derived from the Mercury Marauder, which, if you've never experienced the 2003 Mercury Marauder, it was an awesome car. You had to be there. I was. It's just too bad. Oh, what a car. It seemed, and I'm talking about the Aviator, at that time, a vehicle in search of a market. And I think it was primarily because Ford tried too hard to milk the Explorer platform for all it was worth. I mean, let's look at it. You had the Explorer, you had you had the Mercury Mountaineer, and you had the Aviator. I mean, it was only so much differentiation you could do, and unfortunately, it wasn't enough. The market didn't support three versions of the vehicle, as there didn't seem to be enough variation between the models or brand experience to justify the Lincoln's higher price. And that meant the first generation Aviator was done by 2005. Ford said, 3 years, that's enough, we're done. Meanwhile, the whole of the Mercury division would be retired to the ash heap of automotive history by 2011, so it was gone. By 2018, the folks at Lincoln decided to introduce at the New York Auto Show a prototype version of its planned second-generation three-row Aviator, which was scheduled to enter production the following year as a 2020 model. The latest Aviator rides on Ford's CD6 platform that, again, is shared with the Ford Explorer. But guess what? You don't have the Mountaineer now in the way. And like the Explorer, Aviators sold in North America are assembled exclusively at the automaker's Chicago Heights assembly plant. The second-generation Aviator also received a mid-cycle refresh last year, featuring a redesigned front fascia, refreshed interior, and redesigned headlights. Available in 3 trim levels, Premier, Reserve, and Black Label, power for the Aviator is generated by a 3-liter twin-turbocharged V6 gasoline engine that makes 400 horsepower and 415 foot-pounds of torque. Energy is communicated to the rear wheels via a select shift 10-speed automatic transmission with select shift capability. All-wheel drive is optional. EPA fuel economy is 18 city, 25 highway for rear-wheel drive, 17 city, 25 highway for all-wheel drive. Cargo capacity is 78.6 cubic feet with the second and third row seats folded flat. Towing capacity is 5,000 pounds. Here's what I liked about the Aviator. The new Aviator looks and acts like a contemporary upscale luxury crossover SUV. They didn't always. Smooth, quiet, and responsive for rest, the push-button gear selection is easy and effortless. And Ford's GOAT system, which in case you didn't know is goes over any terrain system, that they perfected on the Bronco is an integral part of the Lincoln magic. The on-demand drive mode includes Excite, Conserve, Normal, Slippery, and Deep conditions. You gotta love the euphemisms. Displays, controls, and switchgear are user-friendly. The head-up display adds to the positive driver experience, and the panoramic sunroof adds a measure of airiness to the cabin. And I'm proud to say that nooks and crannies abound. If you are used to hauling stuff, this is your vehicle. The front seats are very comfortable. Second row seating features heated seats and an optional center console that adds to the already ample storage space. The second row captain's chairs also have a fore and aft adjustment to optimize second and third row seating and comfort. Large rear doors open wide, and the rear windows go all the way down. And here's the best part. Despite the fact that this is a 3-row vehicle, the spare tire is actually accessible from inside the vehicle under the cargo area floor. And by the way, one more thing of note, the second and third row seats fold flat with the cargo floor. Another pet peeve of mine, but they fold flat, which means a lot of usable, square, even space. So here's what I didn't like about the Aviator. The wonderfully elevated driving position is mitigated by the high step-in height. You got to step up for it. Not everybody's going to make it. And if you're really thinking about the Aviator, you might consider adding running boards to solve this issue. Hand grips for the A and B pillars, which you didn't have, would be helpful too. And on the subject of electric door openers, this thing is like press a button on the electric door openers. Not a fan, never have been. I don't care who makes it, not a fan. The manual override, if for some reason the electrics fail and you need to get out of the vehicle, is low on the driver's side door. Certain drivers may not find it, particularly in a panic situation. And speaking of panic situation, here's something I find completely unacceptable. And Lincoln, if I'm wrong on this, you need to holler at me, but from what I could tell, the rear seat passenger's door has no such release. I looked for it. Yikes. Lighting for the rear seat passengers is poor too. And honestly, Lincoln, and I'm talking to you, Ford, you got to be an optimist to use these third row of seats. I mean, seriously. And that is a problem just about every automaker trying to build a mid-size SUV thinks they can get away with cramming a third row of seats in there just to say it's 3 rows. It usually doesn't work. And in this case, guess what? No, it doesn't work. Best to leave the third row folded flat and enjoy the added cargo capacity. And then finally, the second row seats do not have a power folding option from the cargo area door to optimize convenient cargo hauling. Meaning, if I come to the back door and I really need to fold those seats down all the way, I can't do it conveniently from there. There's no power recline or power fold flat from the back. And I think it really needs to be. So, while there's a lot to like about the Lincoln Aviator, this is my bottom line, Transporting 7 folks ain't one of them. At best, this is a luxurious 4-seater with capabilities, and I'll let it go at that. The base manufacturer's suggested retail price for the 2026 Lincoln Aviator luxury crossover SUV starts at $56,910 for the Premier, $66,730 for the Reserve, and $85,910 for Black Label. Destination charges add $1,695. The options on this vehicle came to $2,800 and included exterior paint upgrade, Sirius XM, and a full rear console. All of that together brought the one I tested to $89,955 with options. That's a mouthful, but that's top of the line for a Black Label. Kids as young as 13 can now trade stocks without a parent's approval. How can this be possible? This is the Tech Mobility Show.
You've got the drive. You've got the vision. Now you need the right partner to make it happen. At Playbook Investors Network, we power ambitious leaders with the tools, insight, and investment connections to move faster, grow stronger, and lead markets. We're more than advisors. We're your co-pilots in success. Because in business, standing still is not an option. Playbook Investors Network, fueling ambition, delivering results. Visit pincommunity.org.
Did you know that Tech Mobility has a YouTube channel? Hi, I'm Ken Chester, host of the Tech Mobility Show. Each week, I upload a few short videos of some of the hot topics that I cover during my weekly radio program. I've designed these videos to be informative and entertaining. It's another way to keep up on current mobility and technology news and information. Be sure to watch, like, and subscribe to my channel. That's the Tech Mobility Show on YouTube. Check it out. According to a recent article in MarketWatch, kids as young as 13 years old can trade stocks without a parent's approval. These new youth accounts, offered by industry financial leaders like Charles Schwab, allow teens to make trading decisions without parental approval. Is this a good idea, or is this an accident waiting to happen? This is topic B. I don't know how I feel about this. Let me explain why. First of all, do you realize that the Security and Exchange Commission defines what they call an accredited investor as somebody who has a net worth, net of owning a house, of $300,000 or more? And the reason why I point that out is that the SEC draws a line in the sand on disclosure that if you are a high-value accredited investor, that you have certain knowledge of trading and investing in things that a regular retail investor who has far less in value would have. Meaning that if you are not classified as such, the industry is required to offer you more disclosures and a fuller picture of what's going on. I want to know how legally a child who cannot execute a contract, and most states require you to be at least 18 and in most states 21, before you can even enter into a legally binding contract, can buy and sell stocks. My first question, without your parents' knowledge or permission, big question, where are the guardrails? Where are the guardrails? Nowhere in this article, and I'm talking about MarketWatch, did they talk about guardrails for youngsters. How much can you invest? What are limits? What are red flags that the system will not let you execute? And somewhere, honestly, the parents are going to be on the hook for this. And if they're not, they're going to be, either directly or indirectly. Now, the article goes on and says, as American teens are more exposed to personal finance, education, and tech platforms that make trading more accessible than ever, financial firms are finding new ways to reach young investors before they're old enough to drive, including by handing over control of child brokerage accounts from parents to the kids themselves. Charles Schwab, let me explain this one. They just introduced it. They call it a teen investor account for 13 to 17-year-olds that is jointly owned by the child or the parent. But, and this is an important but, unlike traditional custodial brokerage accounts, it's controlled by the teen. Kids get their own logins and can trade independently without parents approving their transactions, deposits, or withdrawals. What could possibly go wrong right there? The parent is jointly owned. That is how the brokerage firms keep the parent on the hook, meaning the kid's out there doing crazy stuff financially, and the parent don't know about it. And the birds come home to roost. The parent's on the hook. I ain't okay with that. I'm seriously not okay with that. Financial advisors, those people who educate people about financial matters, say the key consideration for parents is balancing education with appropriate supervision. Let me stop. For the average adult and the average teen, financial education is hit or miss. If you are blessed to be in a upscale school system where they teach this stuff, good for you. Or if you're in a home where parents actually have been educated with money and have educated you at this level, took time out, explain investments, how money works, and all of that. Awesome. But if you're on the low end of the spectrum, this is a recipe for disasters because your parents probably weren't taught by their parents. I certainly wasn't. My parents were not that savvy. The little bit I know, I learned. Did I communicate this to my kids? Best I could, but I wasn't at this level. Nowhere in here by the firms, and it says that Fidelity Investments offered to one of the first ones 5 years ago, and that the segment is growing. My issue is simple. I would be okay if any child looking to open this, with a parent or without, was required to go through some basic financial knowledge, either that the brokerage firm would offer about how stocks and bonds work, puts and calls, where your limits are, what you're expected to do, and when the red flags are. Otherwise, you're going to have these kids panicking. Parents are going to be on the hook for thousands of dollars. And it's going to end real bad because it makes certain assumptions that aren't necessarily true. And because kids haven't been through this, do they have the emotional maturity when the market goes sideways to hold? Do they have the emotional maturity not to reach for stuff that sounds too good to be true? And it is too good to be true. Are they strong enough to resist cryptocurrency and all that wave? What about peer pressure? This could end up being very bad. I'm not okay with minors unsupervised trading. Bottom line, I can't see how that works. Because honestly, the percentage of households, if they really did a study that have this level of maturity, that kids have this level of maturity, is probably a fraction of teenagers nationwide. Now, I'm not saying it's a bad idea if you are at home and you have taken the appropriate steps to educate your child in the ways of how finances work globally, how debt works, how investments work, and when to stay the course, and when to resist the emotional exuberance of the market, and actually do constant, concrete planning and why it matters. You're lucky to get these kids to start a savings account and to accrue money. And now you're going to turn them loose to invest, open to every whim without parents' knowledge? Now, that part I'm not okay on. And not all of these financial companies that offer this give kids quite that carte blanche. For example, this one thing called Greenlight. It's a kid-friendly app, but it requires parental approval of all trades. So at least you've got some kind of double check, stopgap, keep the kid from blowing the wad, really. One of these other outfits, and I'm trying to see, this company is called Youth Oriented. It's called Step. was recently acquired and was called out in Congress because that app, which was kid-friendly, allowed teens to trade crypto and encouraged risky investments, and was affiliated with a bank with a troubled history. And here's something else. Most, if not all, of these investments are not FDIC insured, meaning if there's fraud, if they get into something risky and it goes belly up, you're out the money. And if they get into some kind of risky arrangements, you'll be on a hook for way more than you thought, parent. No, I'm not okay with this. Not without guardrails, not without education. I'm not okay with turning kids just loose. Educate them, absolutely. Work with them, absolutely. Because this is no place, and this is gambling, really. And it's not a safe place for somebody who's not prepared and not educated and some knowledge or have access to it. It's called green steel, and it's made from fossil-free hydrogen instead of coal-based blast furnaces. Why this suddenly matters is next. We are the Tech Mobility Show.
Are you tired of juggling multiple apps and platforms for meetings, webinars, and staying connected? Look no further than AONmeetings.com, the all-in-one browser-based platform that does it all. With AON Meetings, you can effortlessly communicate with clients, host virtual meetings and webinars, and stay in touch with family and friends, all in one place and for one price. Here's the best part. You can enjoy a 30-day free trial. It's time to simplify your life and boost your productivity. AONmeetings.com, where innovation meets connection. Get started today and revolutionize the way you communicate.
To learn more about the Tech Mobility Show, start by visiting our website. Hi, I'm Ken Chester, host of the Tech Mobility Show. The website is a treasure trove of information about me and the show, as well as where to find it on the radio across the country. Keep up with the happenings at the Tech Mobility Show by visiting techmobility.show. That's techmobility.show. You can also drop us a line at talk@techmobility.show.
In business, opportunity doesn't wait, and neither should you. At Playbook Investors Network, we connect visionary entrepreneurs with the strategies, resources, and capital they need to win. Whether you're launching, scaling, or reimagining your business, our network turns ambition into measurable success. Your vision deserves more than a plan. It deserves a playbook that works. Playbook Investors Network, where bold ideas meet bold results. Visit pincommunity.org today.
Did you know that Tech Mobility has a YouTube channel? Hi, I'm Ken Chester, host of the Tech Mobility Show. Each week, I upload a few short videos of some of the hot topics that I cover during my weekly radio program. I've designed these videos to be informative and entertaining. It's another way to keep up on current mobility and technology news and information. Be sure to watch, like, and subscribe to my channel. That's the Tech Mobility Show on YouTube. Check it out. Despite a pause in the U.S. commitment towards battling climate change and promoting sustainability, the rest of the world continues to move forward on both fronts. For example, green steel made with sustainable or low-emission energy could play a starring role in the next decade in Europe. European automakers still face tightening tailpipe emission requirements. Green steel will allow them to sell internal combustion engine vehicles after a 2035 deadline, as well as meeting their own overall sustainability goals. Progress, ladies and gentlemen, waits for no one. This is Topic C. I have talked to you about the fact that climate change, sustainability, pollution emissions is global. If you are a multinational corporation on this planet in the year 2026, you're looking at everything. The United States, believe it or not, is only 5% of the population of the world, in case you were wondering. Although we consume 20% of the resources. If you're an automaker, you got to look at everything. And all this is in the United States is just a sideshow. Because you got still other governments in other countries, hundreds of them to be exact, around the rest of the world that is taking this stuff seriously, and they still are mandating. The reason why green steel, and they call it green steel because it is low carbon and doesn't require the amount of fossil fuels generating greenhouse gases and other types of things that add to the problem. And in fact, depending on the combination, could be as much as 70% less of the carbon and greenhouse gases of a normal ton of steel. And we'll cover those numbers in a minute. If the plan is ratified, and in fact, this is a change because the European Commission in December released a comprehensive automotive plan that replaces actually the 2035 zero emission target with a 90% reduction if the remaining emissions are offset by alternative fuels or green steel. So yes, Europe has taken a second look at this, but they took a different direction. They said, okay, we'll change the configuration, but it's still a serious problem. But we'll give you a little more wiggle room on how to meet it. Most of how the automakers are going to get there is through the use of green or what they call low carbon steel. Volvo and BMW have been leading the pack in the application of green steel. The problem is the fact that we've got a chicken and the egg thing going on here. The automakers are fully prepared to make a commitment to green steel, but they need a steel industry to say, we are going to invest the billions required to make it, providing you guys are around to buy it. So we got a standoff here. The automakers are pointing at the steel makers are pointing at the automakers, saying, hey, chicken and the egg. For me to buy green steel, there has to be green steel. The steel makers are saying for us to make green steel, we need to be able to sell green steel. Here's the interesting part of this article that blew my mind. This is Automotive News. Is that, honestly, per car, they said that the cost could be easily absorbed. They're looking at the difference between $185 to $231 a unit. Now, I know. I have talked about this, which should make you cringe if you are really paying close attention. That's still a lot of money in the auto industry. But considering that you can get other synergies to get the price down, it's not thousands of dollars. And that's if you go 100%. If you use a combination, it's actually less. A few weeks back, I talked to you about Volvo's EX60 EV and how Volvo is actually betting and doubling down on that car to become its best seller as opposed to the XC60. It also happens to be the first car made with low carbon steel. And like I said, Volvo has been at the forefront. BMW's actually worked their supply chain as well. Volvo Cars was ranked first in a recent survey by an outfit called Transport and Environment, which is a Brussels-based environmental advocacy group. Volvo's number one in their ranking of green steel use. It was twice that of second place Mercedes, which had a score of 24. Believe it or not, Tesla was third, followed by Ford, GM, and Geely, which is Volvo's parent. Volvo's out front on this. Here's the interesting thing, though, that Volvo said about it. Volvo said, even though we've doubled down on clean technologies and alternative fuels that we think will meet the 2035 tailpipe emissions with no problem, we're still looking at ways to make our vehicles cleaner, manufacture them cleaner. So we will be active, although we don't need it to offset building internal combustion engines. We're doing it because it's the right thing. And Volvo, that has always been their mantra. It's the right thing for them as a manufacturer. It's the right thing for the planet, for them to pursue green steel. A German steelmaker that offers a spectrum of low carbon and nearly carbon-free products that counts Volkswagen amongst its customers said that their green power steel that they make, which uses sustainable energy to power their electric arc furnaces, has up to 98% lower CO2 emissions, 98%. And VW is using that steel right now to produce transmission components. The steel industry believes that the auto industry is going to be the lever to get them to volume on making green steel, providing they can get past this chicken and the egg problem. Part of the issue is that, unfortunately, the European Commission has not adequately defined the definition of green steel, which is why folks tend to use the term low carbon steel. But they're looking to resolve that problem here pretty soon in the next year or so. The beautiful part about green steel is you don't have to change anything. The automakers don't have to re-engineer anything. They can use this steel in their same dies and all of this. It's just a matter of getting it used. They can make it happen. They absolutely can. Volvo Trucks used this zero steel, which is recycled steel and sustainable energy, for chassis beams in 12,000 trucks last year, saving 6,000 tons of CO2 emission. It's doable. It's doable. Volvo said green steel will still be a big part of our decarbonization strategy.
This is the Tech Mobility Podcast.
Every great business starts with a spark, but taking it to the next level takes strategy, connections, and capital. That's where Playbook Investors Network comes in. We're your strategic partner for accelerating growth, navigating challenges, and capturing market opportunities before your competition does. Your business is more than an idea. Let's make it an impact. Playbook Investors Network. Your future starts here. Learn more at pincommunity.org.
To learn more about the Tech Mobility Show, start by visiting our website. I'm Ken Chester, host of the Tech Mobility Show. The website is a treasure trove of information about me and the show, as well as where to find it on the radio across the country. Keep up with the happenings at the Tech Mobility Show by visiting techmobility.show. You can also drop us a line at talk@techmobility.show.
Are you tired of juggling multiple apps and platforms for meetings, webinars, and staying connected? Look no further than AONmeetings.com, the all-in-one browser-based platform that does it all. With AON Meetings, you can effortlessly communicate with clients, host virtual meetings and webinars, and stay in touch with family and friends, all in one place and for one price. Here's the best part. You can enjoy a 30-day free trial. It's time to simplify your life and boost your productivity. AONmeetings.com, where innovation meets connection. Get started today and revolutionize the way you communicate.
You've got the drive. You've got the vision. Now you need the right partner to make it happen. At Playbook Investors Network, we power ambitious leaders with the tools, insight, and investment connections to move faster, grow stronger, and lead markets. We're more than advisors. We're your co-pilots in success. Because in business, standing still is not an option. Playbook Investors Network, fueling ambition, delivering results. Visit pincommunity.org.